Welcome everyone to this momentous day, October 4th, 2021 for Monroe County government after a 17-month hiatus on holding our council meetings in that Hill room due to the pandemic. Tonight, we are back in our old stomping grounds. So I'd just like to clap here for that. So we're back here in the courthouse, well, for this meeting at least. But I do have to say that the room and the renovations here are fantastic. I have really missed being in this space. And great job to everyone involved with preparing the meeting room for tonight. I know Eric Evans and the technical services team have been very busy with getting everything ready to go tonight. And again, my apologies for a little bit of a delay as we got everything worked out so that we could do this hybrid meeting. And just so everyone is aware, Councilor Hawk, Councilor McKim, Councilor Munson, Councilor Wilt, and I are here on site at the courthouse along with Council Administrator Kim Schell and County Attorney Margie Rice so that we can test and refine our hybrid meeting model for future meetings as we prepare for an eventual end of the governor's emergency orders. Last week, the order was extended through the end of October, so we still will likely have some virtual meetings taking place later this month. Our other council members, including Mr. Iverson and some meeting participants are joining us virtually tonight by Zoom. So we'll see how this goes. And let's hope for some good luck here tonight. Okay, so welcome everyone again to the public hearing for the 2022 budget. We'll hold public hearings on 3 budgets tonight, including the Solid Waste Management District, the Monroe Fire Protection District, and then we'll conclude with the Monroe County budget. Members of the public will have the opportunity to provide comments on each of these budgets once the hearing has been opened. We'll take public comment first from participants. Well, there are no participants here in the Nephew Hill room tonight, but we'll have the opportunity for public comment from our virtual participants as well too. Once the public has concluded their comments, we'll then check with council members for any remarks or questions they may have before closing the 3 public hearings we're holding tonight. This will be the process we use for each of the 3 budgets. Once we have concluded all 3 of the public hearings this evening, we'll then have kind of a mini work session for items 5 and 6, which I would imagine won't take a whole lot of time. And once we wrap up those items, we'll be ready to adjourn. So I'll check with my colleagues. Are there any questions before we call the roll and get started tonight? All right. Doesn't appear so. So council, please indicate by voice that you're present as I call the roll. Councilmember Deckard. And Councilmember Deckard is not present for the moment. He'll be joining us a little bit later. Councilmember Hawk.
Present.
Councilmember Iverson.
Here.
Councilmember McKim.
Here.
Councilmember Munson.
Here.
Councilmember Wiltz.
Here.
All right. So we'll now proceed to adoption of the agenda. The agenda can be located on the Monroe County government website for anyone who may wish to access it. Do any members have changes to the agenda tonight that they wish to request? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda items 1 through 8.
Move we approve the agenda.
Any questions?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any comments? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote, please, to approve our agenda for the evening.
Councilor McKim,
Yes.
Councilor Wiltz,
Yes.
Councilor Hawk,
Yes.
Councilor Iverson,
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Councilor Deckard is not present, and Councilor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move on to item 3, and we'll see if there's any public comment for items not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments on items not on the agenda this evening? If so, please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom.
It looks like we have one, Jim Shelton.
And we have Mr. Shelton. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Council. Jim Shelton with the Chamber. Happy to be joining you on this momentous occasion. I want to take advantage of this last opportunity to alert the public that CASA will be having their fall training starting in 2 weeks. It'll run the 18th through November 10th. We have now got 30 children who do not have a volunteer to be assigned to be their CASA. As Kristen Bechet told you guys when she briefed you back in August, the court system for juveniles is seeing more increases in children being physically abused by their parents. We conclude this is the result of COVID and the stress that this has put on families. But regardless of why, we're now having more children being removed from their families because they're not physically safe to be there. So we need more people to please step up, be volunteers, help these children who are in the court system through no fault of their own. And typically about half of them are less than 5 years old. The CASA would help be another set of eyes and ears for the court to advise Judge Galvin or Judge Harvey as to what is going on with that child or the child's placement, probably in a foster situation or with a relative, and then how the parents are doing in complying with the court has ordered them to do to work toward being reunited with their child or children. So we'll have a training. It'll be right now. They're still trying to have it in person. I'm not sure. They'll see what's happening over the next 2 weeks and decide and let the public know. But if this is something you're interested in or maybe have been thinking about for a while, now's the time to do it. And you need to get the applications in now if you want to be part of this training. Typically the next training will be in the winter in February. So please think about it. We need people to step forward and help these children. It helps change the lives of the children. The children, again, are typically under 5. They are confused. They have no idea. They want to be with their mom and dad, even if they're being physically hurt. So after you've been trained, you'd be sworn in by Judge Galvin and Judge Harvey. You'd become an officer of the court. And you'd be offered the opportunity to take on a case, and you would work it with a CASA professional, a staff member who would be there to back you up and to help you with any information you might need. So thanks for the opportunity to be the first public commenter on such a momentous occasion. And I hope people will be inspired as a result and step forward to apply and become CASAs. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Shelton, for your comments. Do we have any additional public comment this evening?
There are no other hands raised.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. So that will conclude item 3. We'll now move on to item 4, which is the 2022 budget public hearing. And we'll now begin the public hearings for tonight. And well, actually, I may have Ms. Rice provide a little background. We're going to do this a little bit different than we have in previous years where we've only had one hearing. Some guidance that we received from the state led us to believe that it would be best to have 3 separate public hearings. So that's why we're going to do that. And I'll have Ms. Rice kind of explain that.
Yeah, just because we are doing this virtually, there's this hybrid model, and we want to make sure that everybody's really clear when we are opening a public hearing and closing a public hearing. We're going to have 3 distinct public hearings tonight. And Councilmember Spoonmore will open each one and close each one. Just for the public's edification, typically in Indiana, public comment is not legally required. Now, of course, in Monroe County, we make a habit of including public comment, even though it's not legally required. But public hearings on the adoption of budgets, those are in fact times when we are legally required to hear from the public. So with that in mind, we will open a hearing on each budget, hear the public comment, if any, and then close that hearing before we move on to the next one.
Okay, very good. Any questions about any of that? All right, pretty straightforward. Thank you, Ms. Rice. So let's begin the public hearings for tonight. We'll begin with the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District Council. I now open the public hearing for the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District's 2022 budget. If there are any members of the public who would like to make comment on this budget, please let us know now. Approach the podium here in the courthouse, or let us know by Zoom. Use the raise hand feature, please. And I'll check with our TSD professionals and see if we have anybody waiting to make comment on this budget.
There are no hands raised.
No hands are raised. Okay. So seeing no public comment, I want to now check with council. Are there any council comments or questions regarding the 2022 budget for the Solid Waste Management District? I'll start on my left. Yes, Ms. Hawk?
I would think when we present the budget, then we would go through each category of the totals. I mean, we need to acknowledge what this budget is. Correct?
I mean, that
I
has,
mean, we're
that's
not-
not the practice that we've used in prior years for
We
this
can, we usually go over during the adoption.
first reading and
but
second.
Right.
reading.
Right. But you were just saying, if they're here, fine, and if they're not, well, we're not telling them what the budget says that's being requested. Okay,
I mean, we can pull up those,
I guess that's why I was looking for the packet.
and I just want to clarify though, in the past, this is not the normal practice of going over all those categories and numbers.
No,
for the budget.
we have not done that before. We just open it up to the public. We let them know what fund or budget we are talking about, and then if they have a question. When we do all the detail, it's at the first reading.
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
Whatever.
Do we have any questions or comments to my right? Solid Waste Management District budget. Okay, I'll check. Is Mr. McGlasson on?
Yes, he is.
Okay, and I'll check with our departments and see if we have any comments from our leaders. Mr. McGlasson, can you hear us?
I can.
Thanks for joining. Just wanted to check with you and see if there was any additional comments you had for council this evening.
No, from our perspective, nothing has changed since the budget was first presented to the council. So no additional comments or presentations. Just as always, we thank the council for their time and consideration on the budget.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. All right. Well, if there's nothing further from council,
You might want to ask Mr. Iverson since he's remotely.
Mr. Iverson, sorry.
Thank you for that. I have no further comments or questions. Thank you.
Yep. If you do, use the raised hand feature and I've got that
You'll see
right
me?
in front of my- Yeah. I've got it right in front of my face here. I can't miss it.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Spoonmore.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's nothing further from council, the public hearing for the 2022 budget for the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District is now closed. First reading for this budget will take place on October 18th, and final adoption is scheduled for October 19th. And I want to check with our county attorney on this, and those meetings are scheduled. They can take place virtually, right?
The meetings on the 18th and 19th?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So as long as the governor's executive order is in place, and that's scheduled to be in place till October 31st, if he would extend it another month, we could then meet virtually anytime that executive order is in place. Once that falls away and we don't have an emergency anymore, we will fall under the rules in newly enacted House Enrolled Act 1437. So we will, if you decide to meet on the 18th and 19th virtually, we will make sure that the notice is clear, that meeting will be 100% virtual.
Okay, very good. And we intend to have that decision made very soon, and we'll get that information out to all interested parties as soon as possible. Okay, our next public hearing is for the Monroe Fire Protection District. Council, I will now open the public hearing for the Monroe Fire Protection District's 2022 budget. If there are any members of the public who would like to make comment on this budget, please let us know now. Either approach the podium or use the raise hand function in Zoom. And we have joining us Chief Dustin Dillard from the Fire Protection District. We'll check in with him in just a moment. We'll first see if we have any public comment.
There are no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, and there's nobody in the Nat U Hill room other than staff and elected officials. So we will check in with council here, see if we have any questions. Again, we have our Chief Dillard joining us. Do we have any questions or comments on this budget from council? Mr. McKim, yes.
Yes, actually, thank you very much. I'd like to just hear briefly from either the chief or his board about the major changes from particularly with respect to levy and potentially tax rates from last year, just since we know that this budget has changed so much from year to year and the levy and rates have changed so much from year to year. I guess I would just like to hear the chief maybe address what those changes are.
Thank you for your question. So in 2021, the district's tax levy was 0.3622. And that was mostly because the district's funding was coming primarily from property taxes. The local income tax was not supplementing much of that budget. In 2022, we're looking at an estimated property tax rate of 0.2669. I think this is a conservative figure. I think it will be slightly lower than this, but I don't think it will exceed the 0.2669. Most of that is due to lit supplementing a much larger portion of the budget this year. And the second is really minimal growth as far as what we're adding to the district operationally, in contrast to adding the assessed values of Benton and Washington townships in. So really the lit coming in and Benton and Washington Township formally being a part of the district, we're seeing that decrease of about really almost 10 cents in the rate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council? Yes, Ms. Hawk.
Yes, for people who might be watching at home, the way to continue to watch these budgets as they're being presented is to go to local budget notices. And that's the public information for, you can go to Monroe County, go to the taxing unit you want to see, and then click over there. To your right, you'll see a date on there. And when you do that, it'll pull up what the taxes are for this year and what the tax levy is proposed to be for next year. And so that's where the public would see that the tax levy is being reduced there for the solid waste, not solid waste district, but the fire protection district. So that's just something I think that we all should be looking at as we go. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Any additional discussion or questions from council? Am I right? Okay. Well, I believe that will cover everything on our end. The public hearing for the 2022 budget for the Monroe Fire Protection District is now closed. First reading for this budget will take place on October 18th. Final adoption is scheduled for October 19th. And thanks again to Mr. Dillard for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question real quick? Not
Yes.
related to the budget,
Sure.
Related to the audio. I'm just wondering, and in the interest of we're all experimenting and trying to figure out what works, I was wondering if it was possible without creating any other audio problems to turn up the sound that's coming from the Zoom meeting, because I'm finding it a little bit hard to hear that. I hear my colleagues well, but I don't want to create additional feedback, but I'm just wondering if it's possible to up.
Yeah, let's.
I think we can do that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Where are the speakers? Those are the speakers up there. Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to, Elizabeth Sensenstein, our personnel administrator, said this is really great viewing for folks at home. You can hear everyone really well and the camera moves around nicely. So it's
All right.
working well.
Good to hear that. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. That was very good. Yes, Ms. Munson.
I would like to make the suggestion that the public send an email to the county council office if they wish to comment on problems with listening to or hearing our meetings.
Yes, excellent suggestion. And Ms. Shell, what is the email address for the council office?
It's counciloffice@co.monroe.in.us.
Okay, perfect. And we may want to put that in the chat too, just so people can grab that if they need it. Thank you for that suggestion to both Mr. McKinney and Ms. Munson. Any other questions? Comments? Yes.
Counselor Deckard has just appeared
Is he on?
for the record.
Okay. Is he on Zoom?
Yes.
All right. And welcome to Mr. Deckard for joining us. He is joining us virtually this evening. All right. Our next public hearing is for Monroe County. Council, I will now open the public hearing for Monroe County's 2022 budget. If there are any members of the public who would like to make comment on this budget, please let us know now. Approach our podium in the Nat U Hill room. There's nobody here, but or let us know by Zoom if you'd like to comment on this budget. Please use the raise hand feature in Zoom.
There are no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay. So we evidently do not have any public comment on the Monroe County 2022 budget. Do we have any council members who would like to make comment or any questions on the budget? Yes, Mr. McKim.
Yes, Michelle, I know that the auditor's office made some kind of decisions with respect to advertising to give us enough room to advertise, but to be able to work within the budget. But I was wondering if you might be able to give us a little more detail on how the advertising differs from the actual budget that we crafted.
The advertising portion is what is a guess, and of what we're going to need. And it's always been best practice to advertise high because if you want to make any changes or corrections in a budget, if you have locked yourself into a certain amount, for instance, you have not padded, I want to say, the fund, you cannot make any changes above what has been advertised. So this allows a more flexibility in being able to make needed changes or additions to funds as things might come up between the time that you view the departments as their submissions to the time that you make your final request. So this just allows each department or the council a little bit more flexibility in making corrections or changes.
But I guess what I was really wondering is if you remembered kind of how they made the decisions as to how much, because
oh yes, I do. I was so what we did was with regards to the salary portions of the budgets, those were increased by 30%. And because I didn't really know how much it might take with regards to the WIS proposed increase. And so I wanted to be able to have enough in there to make those adjustments. And then council also requested during, and I can't remember which meeting it was, but to possibly move some items from different budgets into the juvenile per diems. And so we talked about that, and we increased the supplies, services, and capital lines by 20%. And then that way, if we can move things from one fund and increase it in another without being too low.
So basically the budget, the salaries were increased by 30% and the other categories by 20%.
20% for each fund.
Right, okay, so that's on the budget side. And then what about the levy side? Do you know how the decisions were made as to how much to advertise for the levies?
Let's see, I cannot remember off the top of my head. I want to say, I think she divided everything up and just made it equal across the board as how we did it last year. Let's see. I believe Bree Gregory is in the attendees. If you want to allow her to be promoted, she might be able to explain that part of it.
If she's willing to. I don't want to put her on the spot, but I mean, there are a couple of, I mean, the levy, for example, in the advertisement is quite a bit higher than we would expect it to be. And I mean, I understand we're supposed to be conservative. I guess I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the methodology used to
I know
create
that
that
we both
estimate.
worked on it together, but that's not my.
Right, no, I know you did the
expertise part,
budget
yeah.
and you explained how the budget was,
Yeah.
was adjusted. So now I think that
Where-
question was
where's
asked
the
and
on-
answered.
Is
On?
Bree
Is she on
available
here?
for a question?
Bree has permissions to talk, but I don't know if Bree is available in person.
Okay.
I don't.
At some point, I mean,
Yeah.
it would be nice to have that, to hear a little bit more about the methodology used for generating those levy advertisements. But I mean, if we don't have the answer right now, we don't have the answer right now. I just,
It's because this is such an important part of the public understanding what we're doing. And this is so far off that it makes it hard to
TSD
explain to the public.
TSD, she said she missed the invite. Could you send the invite again, please?
Just give Bree a.
I've sent the invite again, and it looks like Bree will be joining us shortly.
Okay. So we'll have Bree joining us here in just a moment. Do we have any other questions
She is.
before then?
She's available now.
One
Okay.
important thing, Mr. President,
Yes.
was that when we first looked at this, they had not included the bond. And so that's the reason why it's important that we as council members do fact checking, making sure, because more eyes looking at it, something is more likely to make sure we don't make a
Yes,
faux pas someplace.
absolutely.
Hi, Council. I'm here whenever you're ready for me.
Did you want
oh, okay, thank you. I just want, I'll repeat my question. What we're curious about is what methodology did the auditor's office use to determine the amount to be advertised for the levies specifically in the advertisement? Just because the general fund levy is so much, I mean, we know we're supposed to go high. The general fund levy is so much larger than what the levy can possibly be, that I guess I think we're just kind of curious as to how those numbers are determined. What?
Sure. Well, Auditor Smith sat down with Michelle and I and kind of went through that process with us. So first, the DLGF, the Department of Local Government Finance, makes a recommendation, to use 85% of the levy, of the net AV. So we use that, and then Auditor Smith kind of walked us through, her preferred cash balances for all those funds. And so from that point, that's kind of just how we determined, what percent to use. And I know Kathy could explain a little bit further, and I will definitely talk with her and, send an email with a little bit more detail, as we move forward.
Thank you. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll look forward to that information. Thank you, Ms. Gregory. And see now if we have any other questions or comments on the right side of the dais. Oh, nice angle. Looks like it is on there too. Is Mr. Deckard still with us?
Yes.
I am here.
Okay. Something going on with our Zoom feed on our monitor here. It's not showing all the participants, but that's okay. Everyone's here, it looks like. Any other questions or comments from council on the budget? And if there's any council members who are participating virtually, just use the raise hand function. It doesn't appear so. So the public hearing for Monroe County's 2022 budget is now closed, and first reading for this budget will also take place on October 18th, as well as final adoption on October 19th. This concludes our public hearings for the evening. And so Michelle, just to kind of follow up on all of this, these budgets, as you kind of talked about earlier, these budgets are subject to change still. And we still have some things that we're looking at, particularly with the per diem fund and salaries and so forth. So as we get closer to budget adoption, we'll likely be seeing some adjustments to the budget as we go.
And we're going to hear a little bit more about the salaries today. Right?
Yeah, we'll hear more about that a little bit later this evening. Okay. So moving on now to item 5, which is the second reading and approval of ordinances 2021-39 and 2021-40 pertaining to property purchases. Ms. Rice, did you want to give us the background on this one?
Yeah, so we've had a first reading, but no vote on these two ordinances. They are ordinances to purchase real property. And as you know, the council by state law has to approve the terms and conditions of the purchases by ordinance before the purchases can be finalized. So the commissioners have executed a purchase agreement to acquire property from the Yates family, and it's for $195,000. All the details are in your ordinance. And then there's Kathy Francis's property. They're both about 14-acre parcels, and that will be for $175,000. So last time you met, you approved resolutions just saying that the county desired the property. That was one step. And then tonight, we're asking you to approve the ordinances with the details in it about the property. So these are both roadfront properties on Hunter Valley Road. They provide access to a quarry that the county is considering purchasing, but as you know, the county has not executed a purchase agreement on that and is still in the investigatory stage. We're doing further environmental due diligence on that. So these properties, again, are marketable properties on the road front of Hunter Valley. And tonight, if you approve these ordinances, and then we will move forward, since the purchase agreements have already been approved by the commissioners, we will move forward to closing on these properties and they will become property of Monroe County. Happy to answer any questions you have. Procedurally, ordinances required introduced and then voted on, or you have to approve it unanimously the first time you vote on it. So we introduced it So tonight it will only require a majority vote to support these.
Council, I move that we open for further discussion and approval ordinance 2021-39 to approve and fix terms and conditions for the purchase of land from Kathy J. Francis.
So we're doing them individually?
That's what I was going.
Okay, second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the Francis property.
Just quick point of order. Do we still have Mr. Iverson? I know we're having some Zoom issues. I just want to make sure that we still have Mr. Decker and Mr. Iverson.
I see Mr. Deckard, but I do not see
I don't see
Counselor
anybody on our screen.
Iverson.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Decker is listed as a panelist, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Deckard is here, and then I just saw Mr. Iverson come in.
I'm here again too. Can you hear me? Is everything okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Everybody accounted for.
Thank
Very good. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second on the Francis property ordinance. Do we have any discussion or questions? Yes, Ms. Falk.
Yes. I wanted to just continue to share my concern about this purchase. For those of you who have known me forever, well, that was actually before most of you were born. When I worked at Westinghouse on the switchboard, it was a very exciting job. I loved it. I could be on that switchboard all day and go home. And during that time was when I was pregnant. After I worked there for a while, I was pregnant with my second daughter, who was born in 1965. At the time, had no idea that I was putting my daughter's health at risk or my health at risk. And now when I see, and believe me, we've had a lot of reason to question some of her health situations when she was little. So I hold that near and dear to my heart, and especially when we're being advised by the person who's looking into some of this, is saying that it would not be good for a pregnant person or one who was nursing to be a part of the staff there. And so I'm very concerned about doing this. Yes, I have personal connections to it, but beyond that, when I was already involved in county government and we were fighting this so hard, and everybody involved was so wrapped up trying to figure out what we were going to do about it, I just don't think it's something to celebrate and send a message out to the world. Hey, you know, here we're going to have any kind of Parker recognition of it, other than try to stay away from it. So that's my personal feeling. I know that I'm in the minority here, but I appreciate you allowing me to share my concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Any further comments, Ms. Wiltz?
I have a question and then a comment. My question is the recommendations that you just referred to, Councilor Hawk, about the staff at the site, that's relevant to the property we're not buying tonight. Is that correct?
We would have no need to buy this if we didn't intend to buy the other one, of course, because we're not, this county's not in a position to be investors in real estate. So I see no reason that we would invest the public's money into this property if we didn't have full intention of proceeding.
That's a fair point, but a member of the redevelopment commission called me and made a case for buying these based on right of way. I was contacted by one of the redevelopment commissioners about these two properties being specifically beneficial to the county highway department getting right of way through there for further development at some point. So I think there's more to it. And I honestly, I'm not trying to to argue your points at all. I just, first of all, wanted the clarification, honestly, that those the property that's being assessed isn't we don't have that kind of data on these two properties, do we? I'm looking at you now.
If it makes everyone feel better to make whatever reason that you want to support this, whatever, I don't intend to. I think if the highway wanted to buy it for their right of way, they could have come to us, and that's why we would say we were doing it for the highway right of way. That's not what we're saying here. That's not the way it was presented. So, but I appreciate you sharing your thoughts.
Okay, so do you know?
If you could
Counselor
speak in the
Wills.
mic, then I could probably hear you better.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say, Counselor Wills, can you like be more?
I do believe, I know the comment that Marty is referring to, and it was made by Diane Henschel, who is doing the further due diligence on the quarry property that is not the subject of the purchase tonight. So she is correct in her comment, but I believe it is about the adjoining property. These properties, the reports that we had that there may have been low-level PCBs tracked across the properties as vehicles and people went in and out to that quarry. And Diane Henschel has also said there are PCBs in the groundwater.
Yeah,
So
sure.
underneath all of the property around there, there may be PCBs underneath the bedrock. But the specific comment that Councilmember Hawk mentioned was made in reference to the adjoining property, not these two.
Right.
okay.
But you told me the intention of buying these two was in order to buy the other one. So
These properties would provide access to those other properties. They are marketable properties that if you decide not to buy the property behind you, could be resold. We were able to negotiate the purchase with these two, did not have as great a concern about the environmental risk with these two as we did with the other one. The other property is going to require additional investigatory work, and Diane Henschel, who's a professor at Indiana University, is working out there. I think she took groups of students out over the weekend, and she is currently doing some investigation with her students. Through this semester, we'll have some more information at the end of the semester for us about that other property that will factor into decision making.
Okay. Did that get you?
That answered my question. I did have a comment when I can let other people.
Oh, feel free. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge that I think there are a lot of stories in our local history, very similar to Councillor Hawks, and a lot of them even more painful.
and
You still can't hear me, sorry.
and I can't read your lips either.
No,
so-
it's impossible. But I just wanted to acknowledge that there are a lot of stories, many stories around this period of our history about the negative impacts of the PCBs that were dumped there. And I think, in my opinion, should we move forward with the other property, regardless of these two, I'm hoping that the intent is to honor that story, tell that story, and in the interest of truth and speaking truth, but also in the interest of acknowledging what happened in our community that was really painful. And I think that's a side of parks and public lands that we don't often promote, but that's every bit as important a reason to purchase and steward a property. So that's just my side of it.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkes, any other questions or comments from council?
Counselor Iverson.
I'm sorry.
Counselor Iverson
Oh.
has his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Iverson?
Glad that worked. I just wanted to make sure that my audio was working. The motion on the floor is for one of the ordinances or for both?
Just letter A on the, just the first one there.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Okay. Anything further? Okay. Well, let's see if we have any public comment. And I'll rely on our staff to let us know if there's anyone who would like to make public comment.
There are no hands raised.
No hands? Okay. All right. We got the camera angle there on the podium. Okay, so we'll take a roll call vote on ordinance 2021-39.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
No.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed majority 6-1.
So council, I'm going to now move that we open for consideration and approval the ordinance 2021-40 to approve and fix terms and conditions for the purchase of land from the Helen Catherine Yates Trust.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the Helen Catherine Yates Trust property. Do we have any questions or discussion on this ordinance? Yes, Ms. Munson.
I wanted to comment that this property is adjacent to the Francis property, and the discussions by the redevelopment commission pertain to this property as well. Similarly, the conditions pertain as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, council? Any of our virtual participants have questions or comments? All right. And we'll get that camera angle back to the public. Do we have any public comment? Evidently not. We'll take a roll call vote. Take a roll call vote on ordinance 2021-40.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
No.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed majority 6-1.
Okay, thank you. And that will conclude item 5. We'll now move on to item 6, which is a discussion regarding the proposed 2022 salary increases recommended by our consultant, WIS, otherwise known as Wagner Irwin Shealy. And I will turn it over now to Ms. Shell for some additional information on this.
Good evening, council. I just sent to you earlier this afternoon, just before the meeting, the results of the departments turning in their paperwork with regards to increases. So if I could share my screen.
Go ahead.
Can you see that?
We don't see it on our end here in front of us, but I can pull it up.
I do see it on Zoom, but on my Zoom, but I don't see it on that Zoom.
We see it fine here.
Everybody virtually can see it, though it appears. just
Mr.
not.
Evans, is there a way to put the my share on the screen in front of the council? Okay.
Yeah, the Zoom in front of us just seems a bit wonky. But it looks like it's correct, the one that's going out to the public.
I'll give him a moment. But what I did was, in the meantime, I sent out to each of the departments a workbook for them to input WIS's recommended hourly rates, and as well as the new classification proposed, as well as the proposed new titles. We did have a few departments where some of the titles did get adjusted to better describe their jobs. And so with that, WIS had a total cost summary of $1,706,175. And I sent this all to you in an email, like I said, probably about 15 after 5. So originally, council had proposed $1 million for the increase. And then after some later discussions, went ahead and suggested just, let's see what it's going to cost with WIS's going 100%. And so with the FICA and the PERF included on that 1.7, it would cost approximately 2.078 in for WIS's suggestion. And so currently, with all the information that I have collected from the departments, I have everything in except for the highway. And there was a problem with the highway structure. What hierarchy? At the hierarchy grid. And it was actually paying lower than what they're currently paying people. And they can't or are not able to right at this moment even get people to come in, hire people in at the rate that they've got now. So, and they have, the highway has a 5-tier hierarchy, and WIS had come back with a 4-tier, and that was problematic with the union. So Margie, as well as Lisa, and we talked with WIS, and Margie, you can jump in anytime. We had a discussion on how, they felt that they needed. So if you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
No, I think Kim gave a good summary. Essentially, they're a negotiated union with a different structure that we're able to keep that same structure that they've negotiated, but work it in so that it complements and works with the WIS structure. So I think it's fine to have it, to sort of honor their contract and honor what they've negotiated. And it's not as if it's an anomaly or release inconsistent with the WIS schedule, because WIS has looked at it and made any adjustments that was needed.
Currently, the highway grid has steps all the way up to 45. And the union is not opposed to scaling that back down and following the WIS's recommendation of 20, the addition of the 20 and the 25 year that WIS has proposed. So they don't have a problem with that. What they were having a problem with was the hierarchy and how to do that. So I just received today a proposal from them, and I have sent it off to the highway and their union, and hopefully I'll be hearing something back. So this number that I have come up with does not include any highway numbers. So as of right now, with everything that has been turned in without the highway, the total increase is 2.010, which is about 60-some-thousand short of the goal. So I'm not sure where it will be when I finally get the highway, but at least you can kind of see how much the increase and where we're targeted right now. Also, this also includes, just so that we're kind of on the high end, it also includes a 2% increase for elected officials, a which would then have the chief deputies being 90% of the chief elected officials, as well as the SOs. This includes that for all the SOs. The only department that I did not make any adjustments, and that's because you had a earlier discussion, was the coroner's the coroner's deputies. And she had requested a $2,000 increase with regards to her deputies. And you chose during the budget sessions not to include that. So I don't have any direction with regards to how to move with that. But that's where I'm at right now. And I hope to have some better numbers for you once the union kind of looks over the recommendation that WIS provided today.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. And yes, certainly some things that we'll want to revisit, as you mentioned. And I just wanted to note for everyone on council that the 2% increase for elected officials was at my advice to Kim to include that as kind of a starting point. It wasn't something that Kim just kind of went off on her own and did, but that was what she was instructed from me, but certainly open to any discussion about that as well too, if there's other ideas. So that was just kind of a starting point that I had her include in there. So let's see if we do have any questions or if there's anything further that we need to get into to discuss here. It looks like Ms. Hawk would like to get started.
Yes, just now looking at these numbers, and so I'm just trying to make sure I understand, but I want to make sure that we're not including, I mean, it's good to know what it's going to cost for the lit special purpose, but it seems to me that we don't need to be considering that in with a total amount that would be that you could move from general fund into aviation or health or something. So whatever that expense is, that could be pulled completely out and put in a different column, because that will come out of special purpose tax, and there's, we can't just move that around any way we want to.
Well, it is in a line all its own, but the grand total, I mean, that we will spend on the entire salaries is what I was looking at across the board, regardless of what fund. So, because when we submitted their recommendation, they didn't have this divided up by fund at all. So they gave us a number of 1.7 across the board. So that's what I'm working with. And that's why I said, I just have it as a grand total across the board.
So the only reason why I'm saying that if we pull that out, it will give us a better budgeting idea, because we don't need to consider that as to the total dollar. Am I making sense? Okay.
Well, we do include it though when we submit the budgets to DLGF. So when we do submit all of our funds and input that, I mean, it is included. So that's why I included, but I understand what you're saying. So yes.
Because when we're looking at the total max civil levy, and we know that's county general, that's the health department, that's aviation, that's reassessment, all of that. So in order to make this budget decision, not talk about what you're going to turn in, it's the budget decision, we need that split out.
And I have a suggestion. Well, so my suggestion would be that the next step would be to actually redraft the draft 4B to include these new numbers, the new WIS adjusted numbers for, in particular, the way I've always presented it, I've always included the frozen levy plus public safety lit, because those are the funds that we can kind of shift around levies or expenses within.
Okay.
So I think we're going to want to figure out, we're going to want to redraft the 4B that will include all these new totals. So we'll kind of see what our bottom line is. And then I know that'll increase everything. Then also take what I would say start to estimate the levies that would need to fund these budgets on that 4B based on what the auditors already entered for the funds other than the general fund, and then bring the general fund back to what it actually realistically could be, not the inflated. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
Have a
essentially,
more realistic.
yeah,
rate.
create a realistic draft 4B that'll include all the funds in the civil max levy plus public safety lit. And then we can also, we'll also adjust it the other way by coming up with the list of one-time expenses that we can move from the general fund budget, for example, or health budget to the per diems fund. And then I think that'll give us a much more realistic perspective of where we actually are. So I would think that wouldn't be too hard to do. We could probably do that the next day or two and email it out to the council.
Should we have an updated review of that at the October 12th meeting?
Yes, I can
Oh,
have that
yeah.
ready by then. Yes.
Let's put that on the agenda for that. And then, with any email or information that you can send out in advance of that would be fantastic.
Okay, I do have a question. Because I had talked to a couple of counselors before, but with regards to moving things from the general fund to per diem, am I only looking at general fund, or am I going to look across the board with regards to the levy funds?
Yeah.
I think the levy funds, I mean, I think we had already identified one in the health department that
health
was a
department, okay.
capital expense that could probably be moved.
Yeah, it's not reoccurring expenses.
Right,
Right.
just a
Yeah.
one-time.
Yeah, not salaries or
Right.
regular
Okay,
contracts.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear that I wasn't only looking in general fund.
I mean, I think you can do the same with PS Lit because we can, with PS Lit, because anything we remove out of PS Lit, we can always move general fund expenses into PS Lit.
Okay. So anything that I can find in general fund that possibly could go to PS Lit?
One time.
One
No,
time. No.
I'd say
Anything in the frozen
anything in
funds.
the levy funds or PS Lit that are one-time expenses that could be moved into the. into the per
Okay, I
diems.
got you. Misunderstood. Sorry about that.
Mr. Iverson, did you have a question or a comment?
I did. As we're viewing this here in Zoom world, the two highlighted cells, of course, stand out. And as we're talking about, well, first of all, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, good. As we're talking about updating the draft 4B, the total that we're going to be shooting for in that draft 4B is going to be the one in C11. Is that correct, or is our goal still D16, or am I thinking about this in a weird way?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so the WIS numbers were based on, last year's information essentially. And what we see in C11 is based on current information, which includes the actual numbers of years experience of each of the employees. However, highway is not included. So
right.
That what's in C11 will be ultimately increased once we throw in highway. But I don't think we need to particularly hit D16. I don't think that's necessarily really the goal. That was just an estimate based on their methodology, and we're just applying that methodology a year later. So the numbers are going to be a little bit different, but they're pretty darn close, I think.
They're really close. And I think that's really great clarification. Thank you.
And I do want to say that the information that that we had received from WIS was slightly askew. I mean, some of the split salaries were not included. Like they had half of the surveyor's information in there. They had, there was a couple where I think we've discovered maybe like 5 full-time employees that weren't even included on the list, and how those got missed, I honestly can't tell you. I know that we sent a completed list at the beginning, but how things over time seem to disappear. Maybe something got deleted along the way. So there were at least 5 people, full-time people, not included in the WIS cost summary, in my opinion. So I still think that number was a little low anyway. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council on this discussion? And we'll get an update at our next meeting and likely some information by email ahead of that. Okay, anything else, Ms. Shell, on your end?
Not on my end.
We're getting close.
We're getting so close. So. And I did, and I'm not sure if I may have already said this, but I did get a confirmation with regards to the union, the jail. Correctional officers did not have a problem with moving forward with the WIS recommendation, and an unofficial okay from the sheriff's deputies. They said they didn't foresee a problem at this time. The union committee did not see a problem at this time, but they wanted to get, more the official votes from everyone. So it seems like everyone is okay. The only problem was at the time was the highway, and I think we've worked on that and resolved that at this time. So.
Did anybody else have, sorry, did anybody actually get that email that Michelle said she had sent out?
Yeah.
Did you? I didn't.
I did.
You did? Okay.
I did, yes.
Draft proposed WIS increase.
Okay.
I did as well.
Okay. I did not, but okay. So hopefully it'll eventually work its way through the tubes.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing further from council, we'll move on to item 7 now, which is council comments. Do we have any council members who'd like to make remarks prior to adjournment tonight? Anybody? Nobody? Oh, yeah, Ms. Munson.
I just wanted to say, first of all, to my council colleagues and the council office staff, how good it is to be back in person. I have actually missed having in-person meetings, and I thought Zoom was effective for our entire virtual meetings, but I missed seeing the public in person as well. And I can't believe that it's been 17 months because it doesn't seem that long. I guess time flies when there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
So, but it also seemed to really drag on for a very long time. So a mix of both. But I'm very glad we're seeing each other face to face.
Thank you, Ms. Munson.
Thank you.
Ms. Wiltz. Yeah.
Ditto.
And Mr. Iverson.
I have a little bit of a different take. I wish I could be there with you all tonight, but I'm sure that we'll get there soon. As many, I think, of you all have seen, the United States surpassed 700,000 deaths due to COVID-19, and a great majority of these deaths are happening with the unvaccinated. I wanted to remind the public that vaccinations are FDA approved, they are convenient, and that they are free. Please visit ourshot.in.gov or call 211 to schedule your vaccine or the vaccine for someone that you love. I think I'll end on a cheery note that Monroe County now has surpassed the 60% vaccination level. So 60% of Monroe County residents are vaccinated against COVID-19. So well done, Monroe County, and let's get that up to 70 or higher.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anything from Ms. Hawk? Did you have your hand up?
Oh, I just was going to make a notation. I thank you for saying to turn off this so that the speaker would work
that
for
works.
others.
Yeah.
And that worked great with Peter. It worked better with you, but did not work with Cheryl. So it's just for there. Okay. It's a learning experience, folks. Thank you.
I think we all need to be better about getting closer to the microphones. That's because the microphones work well, but you still have to be close to the microphone for it to really work well. And I will just say, I'm so excited to be back. I think that, there were some, some growing pains with the technology, but I think it works. It's fabulous. I think it's really exciting to participate in really our first hybrid meeting. And I say congratulations and thanks to all the tech services staff who are worked so hard, some of whom are in the room right now in the choir loft and have worked so hard to make this happen. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally echo all of those remarks. This has been, it's been an interesting last 17, 18 months or so, and just never expected anything like this would have ever happened when I came into office. So, let alone kind of leading the council throughout the entire time. But just so proud of our county employees and the leadership in the county. Done just such a wonderful job, and this is the first taste of getting back to that. And I'm just really thrilled about it. So thanks for everything, guys. Appreciate it. Ms. Wells, did you have another?
Yes, I just wanted to be sure to wish President Spoonmore a happy birthday and say thank you for spending your birthday in such an appropriate fashion here at the public hearing for budgets.
Heck of a way to get so many candles and so little cake nowadays. But what a great way to spend my 40th birthday. Thank you. I'm glad to celebrate it with you all.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
All right. Well, the other positive news is Facebook is now working again. So that's something that I'm sure everybody is thrilled about. We will we'll adjourn the meeting. Have a good night. We'll see you on October 12th.